Hello and welcome to Elements of Design, a podcast where I interview design leaders, mentors, influencers, and evangelists and talk to them about their design journey, how to be a better designer, and the future of design in India. I'm your host, Mana Madan, a UX designer based out of New Delhi, India. In this episode, I'm having a conversation with Sadiyah. Sadiyah is a designer and a writer and is currently working as a UX writer at CleverTap. And in this episode, we talk about what is UX writing, how can UX writing improve your design and user experience, how can one transition from UX design to UX writing, and how the collaboration should take place between a UX writer and a UX designer. So let's welcome Sadiyah to the show. Hey Sadiyah, hi. Welcome to Elements of Design. How are you doing?
I am doing good, Manav. How about you? How's the lockdown going for you?
It's going fine. I'm really enjoying it. The work from home situation, not the COVID situation. So I was glad to find a UX writer, and thank you to be on the show. And I really want to know what a UX writer is and what do they do, and especially because it's a very niche field, right? And it's started to grow in India. What's it like to be a UX writer? So let's start with your design journey. How did you become a UX writer?
Okay, so right now I work at CleverTap as a UX writer. I've been here for 3 months. Before
Okay.
this, I was at MoneyTap. I realized a lot
Mhm.
of things that you were trying to solve by communication was because the product was missing those answers, right? And then I
Mhm.
kind of got around to just reading about products and writing for product, content on products. And I realized, hey, it's a thing. It's called UX writing. And before this, also, I was quite fascinated by design. I used to read a lot about it. That's just about where I started from.
So what is exactly UX writing? I mean, take us through that.
I would say it's how your interface communicates with you in terms of words, right? Simply put. Just like your design is trying to satisfy a user goal and need at that moment and making them do a task, words are also doing the same. This could be
Okay.
in terms of your onboarding copy, it could be in terms of your macro copy, it could be
Mhm.
in terms of empty state. A lot of these things come out.
So there is actually a similar thing that we actually study in UX design, which is called content strategy. There is also one thing which is called copywriting, right? So I mean, how does UX writing different from like content strategy and copywriting?
So content strategy is, I would say, a more overarching and holistic discipline, and UX writing is part of that. So content strategy is more encompassing. It's not just your product; it's about your different parts of your product, your social accounts, your brand, and all of that, right? So how you look
Okay.
at content holistically for your product. So and UX
Mhm.
writing is a part of it, correct?
Okay.
So, and copywriting, I would say, is more persuasive writing, right? So it's a term that you use that you fundamentally associate when it comes to writing advertising copy or social copy. So writing copy for your social media accounts, your ads, all of that comes under copywriting. All of these have things in common, of course.
Mhm.
UX writing is more focused towards your end product and your, what do you say, user interface copy. Now, I wanted to ask what made you look into UX writing? How did you kind of find out about it?
Yeah. So what happened was a few years ago there was a Facebook page by a UX writer called Yuval and something I don't remember it. So
Yuval
that was a
Keshtcher, right?
yeah, the same guy. So that was the first UX write. That was the time I was introduced to something called UX writing. And before that, I know that there is someone who writes the micro copies of uh, a user interface, which included form labels, error messages, and stuff like that. So, but I thought designers generally do it because as we read content strategy. So I think that's a part that a UX designer has to do. It is interesting though, and it really helps me to think a user interface in a much more holistic way than just a design.
So you are right in the sense that right now it is designers who actually write UX copy.
Mm.
Now,
Okay.
what happens when you UX designers start writing copies? I'm not sure if it's just specific to UX design because your words also matter. Some people have a strength with words, versus some people don't have a strength with words. And I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of times designers not look at the copy in it. It comes as an afterthought.
So there is a question, there is a debate that I and my friend were having a long time. Not a debate, like more of a discussion that we were having was, what should come first, the layout or the content?
You need to think of content from before. as a designer, you need to know what is the story you want to tell. If there is no point adding that subtitle, or if there is no
Mm-hmm.
point adding different parts to your UI without even knowing what it is that you want to communicate there. It might look great,
Mm-hmm.
but if your word, you're trying to force fit your words and if you're trying to force fit your story into that,
Mm-hmm.
it breaks your experience. Like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Good copy can make or break your experience. So even if you can't probably get it to a polished level, which you can
Mm-hmm.
do later, need
Mm-hmm.
to have a first draft or a very rough version of what it is communicating in each part of that, and then design your layout accordingly. So you can add a screen, you can add two buttons and be like, oh yeah, this is going to work. But what are you going to communicate on those two buttons? Are those two buttons
Mm-hmm.
even needed? So
Yeah.
if you're just starting to get used to working with a writer,
Yeah.
what a designer does is they're like, okay, cool, there's a writer. I'm just going to leave two spaces here and
Yeah.
I'm going to go move to my next screen. And then I have to
Yeah.
go back and ask, saying, what is this space for? What do you want me to communicate here? And they're at
Yeah.
a loss of explaining what it is that they want to say.
Yeah.
And then you need to try and go and figure out, oh, is this even needed now? So even if you don't have a writer, my point
Mm-hmm.
is, even if you don't probably have a writer to collaborate with,
Yeah.
when you're just designing, think of
Mm-hmm.
all the questions a user would ask on that screen. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
design, right? Say, what happens? What is this going to do? Is this explanatory, or
Mm-hmm.
is this content even needed? Should it be on some other screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the two most important things the user needs to know on the screen, and are you answering them or not? And then you can figure out your layout according to that,
Yeah.
and then just move on. So
Yeah.
even as designers, like you mentioned, a lot of people then they don't think about it. This is how they can start probably thinking about copy.
So this is something that I actually explored after reading through a little bit. That a designer, that a UX writer should also have like some design fundamentals, and they can also actually suggest uh, the design element in which the copy can be communicated, and designers should be open to it.
Why not think of it like this, right? Writing is also actually design. So this goes back to my first thing. When you
Yeah.
look at an interface, you don't look at the words and the design as two different things. For you,
Different
they're
thing.
just
Exactly.
one thing as a user, right?
Hmm.
So your writing is actually design. A writer also needs to think of design, and a designer also needs to think of the words, because you are also writing for a UI screen, right? And you have a limited amount of space. You need to
Hmm.
also convey what your message to users in the best possible way. Then you can even tell a designer, hey, maybe this probably needs to be broken down into bullet points. So maybe you can reduce the type size in this, and this can just be, you can add visual hierarchies to play around with your content, and all of those things can happen.
So I really want to talk about your writing process. Just take us through what your writing process is.
Once a project kicks off, and you sit with the product manager, you sit with the designer, and you sit with all of these stakeholders to understand what it is about that you're writing.
Hmm.
And I kind of have a mock-up, or I have a wireframe, and I start writing. I go through a first draft or a first iteration. But before this, I probably go down and I just, how you in design you would research. I would
Hmm.
look at how the language around this feature or this specific thought is correct, or what this product is probably going to be like, right?
Hmm.
And from there, I would start listing down terms, industry terminology, user terminology, whether people understand these terms. Make a list of all these words. I just use Google Docs for writing,
Hmm.
and I use a tool called Hemingway,
Okay.
where I probably go, and based on that, I try and write down a simplified version of what it is that I
Hmm.
want to convey.
So what does exactly Hemingway do?
Hemingway is, a lot of people mistake it for Grammarly, but it kind of just
Okay.
tells you whether your copy is being too long, what is the readability grade for it, whether you're using a
Okay.
lot of adverbs, whether the words you're using in your sentence are complicated or not, and what you can do. So usually the first draft is quite long, right? It's not
Okay.
concise at all.
Okay.
Then I cut it down and try out two, three different variations based on how you want to speak. But I try and go and show it to a few stakeholders, get their input, see if it's being understood or not. Everyone tries to chip in and see if it's making sense or if it's not making sense. When people are in an interface, they scan through what they need and they want to move on with their task. No one wants
Hmm.
to read big chunks of text, right? And that's how your copy should be. Your copy should not be in the way of your users. It needs to get users. They should not even be thinking of the words there. They should not even have to
Okay.
put cognitive load and think, oh, there's this big sentence as a read. They should be able to click and get through. Your job as a UX writer is to cut down in the copy and get someone to where they need,
Hmm.
right? And this is something that came from one of my favorite writers, which is John Snyder from Dropbox, that short always beats good.
So Satya, let's say someone who wants to transition from UX design to UX copywriting, or someone who's a professional copywriter, and now they want to transition into UX writing. Uh, what are the things that they should be aware of, and what should they know before switching the roles, and what should their portfolio be like?
Hmm. Okay, so I'll start from the last one where you mentioned portfolios, right? So there's a very good, I think, Medium post by Yuval himself where he's
Okay.
put together a bunch of people who have really good UX writing portfolios, right? But also just show your process, put on a bunch of writing samples. So what I had done when I kind of also started with this is something called a daily UX writing challenge, right? Just like you have daily
Yeah.
UI challenges and stuff. This started by someone called Ryan, and he once you subscribe to that, you get a prompt in your daily, and you can try and go write for it. And you can make different iterations for it. There's a Facebook group. You can go get feedback from people, and you're kind of free to do whatever you want. You can make a mock-up for it, which is what I did, and see where it fits into your UI, and just try out a bunch of different ways to write. Because when you actually get down to writing, like I said, you realize you actually write a lot, but your job is to get it shorter. And when you kind of post it out there to the world, you get a lot of feedback in terms of what is missing versus what is not.
And what about the people who want to transition to UX writing? What advice would you give to them, and how should they start?
If you, like I said, so if you want to start with the simple challenge, just start with the daily UX writing challenge.
Okay.
And then what you can do is just look at a lot of products, right? And look at products which have great user experience and look at the copy that they have. For example, take MailChimp, take Slack, look at how and what they're doing with their copy. Try and understand why they're doing what they're doing. Break it down, right? Just as how you would do a UX breakdown, do a copy breakdown for different products. So, and if you're a designer yourself and you want to start writing, and if you also want to start, like I mentioned, that when you're designing, try and think of what is the information you want to give to your user.
Okay.
And whether it's being helpful to them at this point. Try as a designer to think that way.
Now, since UX writing is like a very niche field in itself, right? What do you think is the future of UX writing in India?
Well, it definitely is going to take a little bit of time to adapt because even designers here, for example, have to kind of get to probably kind of having a seat at the table. But it might, I'm pretty sure it's going to grow because a lot of companies outside, like I mentioned, are using copy to differentiate themselves, right? So every company kind of goes through a process where once they have scale, realize, oh, we have a word problem, and then we want someone to come fix it. So I do see it growing, but I do see it also taking a lot of time.
So it was a great episode, Sadiyah. It was nice talking to you. So where can people find you on the internet?
So I am on Twitter and I'm on Medium also. If you want, I will try and post a bit more regularly. I have two Twitter and Instagram accounts also.
Okay.
One is called Better_UX, and there's another one called UX Writing Zone. So on both of these accounts, I pick out good copy and bad copy examples, and I try and just figure out what is wrong with them.
Yeah.
So you can find me there. You can find me on any social channel except Facebook, of course.
Okay.
So Facebook is one place where you will not find me at. Okay. Otherwise, just shout out to me on Twitter, Insta, anywhere.
Make sure you follow our Instagram accounts because they are really interesting, and I actually follow that.
So I've been trying to get people to also send more screenshots. So if you find a bad error message, please DM. If you find a good error message, or if you find good copy, DM.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Elements of Design. Links to everything mentioned in the episode will be available in the show notes below. To listen to our previous episode, search for Elements of Design in your favorite podcast app and make sure you hit subscribe. If you like the episode or the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or any podcast app that you're listening to. It will help the show get discovered and it would mean a world to me. If you have any feedback, suggestions, or if you just want to say hi, please reach out to me on Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you want. My Instagram is at UXANDMORE and my LinkedIn is Hello Manav with triple L. So that's all for today. Hope to see you in the next episode. And remember, work hard and be nice to people. Cenkwe.